Hello, in this video I'm going to show you how to do this awesome cowl that's in the background here using any S-loom you want. I'm using the smallest one from Cindy Wood. It has 118 pegs and it is the 36-inch 5/8 gauge S-loom, I believe. Of course, you'll need your loom tool. You will need, where's that? It's on here somewhere, right here. You will need a wedge and a pair of scissors. You can use a row counter if you want, and of course a crochet hook to weave in your ends. A row counter is optional, and a crochet hook. So these are all the items you'll need to make this. First of all, how to set up your loom. This pattern here is done in intervals of 5. So you want a something that is divisible by 5, but it's kind of hard to get that on this loom. What I had done was right here, I think that's like 87 pegs or something like that. A couple extra here and there is not really going to make a big difference. It's not anything that will be noticeable anyway. So as you can see, I'm using a large portion of this, but this cowl is big enough to pull over your shoulders and over your head at the same time. So if you only want a little one for your neck, then you want to cut that like in half. So you'd only want to do like 40-45 pegs on your S-looms. Any loom, any gauge will work. If you use a smaller gauge loom, I suggest switching your yarn and not using homespun. Because homespun is a size 5. Where's that here? It's a bulky weight yarn. Which, if you like this color, here's all the information for it. But as you see, this is a bulky weight yarn. Okay. So, to get started, we are going to do a chain cast on to start this out, and then we will go from there. Okay, so you know where to put your wedge at. Now, one thing I did forget to say, this is the 5/8 gauge loom. It's the 36-inch long loom. If your long loom is 5/8 inch, if your S loom is a 5/8 inch S loom, or if you're using a 5/8 inch any loom, then everything's about the same. But I wanted to show you for all the other S looms, the different gauges. Like, the easiest way I found to do this is to take a tape measure. Alright, I'm just making a mess. Alright, take a tape measure, put inside the crease, try to follow along it the best you can. I'm actually going to pull it on the outside so that it's actually following the S shape. Or if you want, if you do it like that, like how I'm doing it, you want it to measure around 25 inches. It's right at 25 inches here. Or if you pull it on the inside and just tighten it, around 22 inches. So 21 to 22 inches. Just count the pegs and try to get it as close to divisible as by 5 as you can. Which I know I've said that a few times. But to cast on, I am using a chain cast on. So you create a slip knot. I do have other videos to show you how to do this better if you need. But you're going to do an entire loop. So tighten that up. Push that first one. There we go. Got your slip knot on a peg. Take that loop behind the next peg and pull that working yarn through. Take that loop behind the next peg, pull the working yarn through. You do this all the way around. You just, oh, okay, I skipped one. Probably shouldn't talk and do this at the same time. Alright. You do this all the way around following this S shape. When you get to this part, depending on your number, and you can go up and go straight across and down and follow it back. Or if your numbers, I mean, you can squeeze that up a little bit and go like that. That's really not going to make a difference. But I would put it, and try to put it as close in between the pegs as you can to get the desired number that you're looking for. But that's what you'll do. You will follow this with the chain cast on all the way around. Then you'll start with your design. Once your cast on is done, we're going to do 10 rows of the figure 8 stitch. Now, as you can see, we're not going rake style across. We're doing it flat. I've already done like 1.5 row. But I will show you where I'm at, how you do it. And I'm navigating these inside curves. It can be a little tricky, but after you go a few rounds, it'll become easier for you to do. Okay, so when you start, the peg that the yarn is coming from, it'll be kind of in between two pegs. You don't wrap that peg. You skip the open peg, wrap the next, and go back and pick up that peg. So this was the peg the yarn was coming from. You wrap this one and back one. And of course, gotta watch your tension. As you can see on those pegs, I did not. I'm actually going to loosen that up. If you feel that your tension is tight, after you do it, you can kind of push in between them. Okay, so now the yarn is coming from this peg, so you're going to skip a peg, wrap a peg, go back one. This peg, you'd wrap the previous time, so you're wrapping that peg 2 times. That's why you have to only do 2 pegs at a time with this stitch. Skip, wrap. That peg was already wrapped. You do this all the way around, and then you do it again. You do that for 10 rounds, and then I'll show you the next step. Decrease stitches, left decrease and right decrease to create the design in the pattern. It's kind of hard to show you with the homespun. The homespun, it's really fuzzy, so I figured if I did it with a regular yarn, it'd be a little easier to show you. So I'm at the point where I'm going to want the decrease to go this way. So when you're doing these decreases, all you're doing is you're moving the yarn from one peg to another peg. Alright, and my previous row is a little tight. The trick is to always move the yarn the way it's slanting. So if you want it to slant to the right and do a right decrease, you'll move the yarn to the right of the peg. You're going to do this for 5 rows, but I'll show you what you're going to do. You'll move it to the right of a peg. Pick a peg, it doesn't matter. I like starting with the black peg because that's a marker for me to remember where I'm at. So you'll move it to the right and then you'll count 5. Count 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll move that one to the right as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you're going to move. You're going to work your way all the way around the loom, doing this. Which this isn't very big. This is only like a 42 peg loom. Alright, I should be about there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, it's 42 peg loom. It's not really divisible by 5. So, I mean, that's perfectly fine. You just do what you can. And something like this, if you have a couple extra rows here or there, like that, it's not anything that's going to be noticeable. So you can't really, like there's that extra 2 rows. But it's going to be a big cowl, so you're not going to, nobody's going to pay attention to that one spot. After you do your decrease row, you push all the pegs to the bottom. And then you just E-wrap. Which I know it's going to look backwards for a minute, but I'm trying to do this all while the video goes. Okay, you will wrap the empty pegs. And along with the pegs that aren't empty, so every single peg on the loom will be wrapped. All the way around. Almost back to the beginning. There we go. Take that one over just to hold it in place. Now you would take the bottom loops over top the top loops on every peg that has bottom loops. Like this one is one of your decrease pegs, so it actually has 2. So you'll take both over the top. Do that all the way around. Well, if you do that all the way around, then you decrease over 1 more. The way you know where you're at is if you look at these pegs, you can see that was an empty peg that just got wrapped. There's nothing over top of it. So that means the peg next to it is the peg you need to move, since we're going in this direction. So that is the peg you take off and move over. So you would count 5 from there and move the peg over all the way around. Then you would E-wrap, and you're going to do your decrease. You're going to do 5 decreases, so you'll decrease, start with this peg, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. When this is the empty peg, then you do 2 rows of your figure 8 stitch. Then you'll start with this peg and work your way back. But I will get to after the figure 8 stitch rows, and then I'll show you how to do the way back. Alright, you have your row of right decreases done. You can see them up there. And 2 rows of figure 8 stitch, sorry. And I did want to show you something. I wanted to give you an example of why you move it in the direction we move it. See, look how awesome that design is on this. If you move it in the opposite direction, this is what you get. You can kind of see a line going through there, but it really doesn't have much texture to it or design. And then you go up here and you see this, and you're like, oh wow, that's a lot better. So that's why you move it in the direction that you move it. So now we have one going right, one going left, one going right. We need to go left again. 1, 2, 3. What you're going to do is you're going to start at your beginning peg and count 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to take it off that one and move it to the peg before it. So it'll start moving this way. You'll count 5 all the way around the loom, and you'll do the same thing. Your next row, for the first one, you'll count 4, then 3, then 2, then 1. You know, once this one is the empty peg, then you do your 2 rows of your figure 8 stitch. It's the same way you did the previous set. It's just you're moving in this direction when you were moving in that direction before. You do this as long as you want it to be. I'm going to use 2 skeins of yarn for this one, and I'm using the Serenity Chunky Wake by Deborah Norville. There is, if it'll load, okay, there's the collar and everything for that one, Puppy Dog Tails. For the big cow, I used 3 skeins of homespun to get that one done. Well, actually, it was probably about 2.5 to 3. To give you an idea of sizing. Once it's as long as you want, finish off with 8 more rows of your figure 8 stitch. Just looks like this. And then I'll show you how to cast off. Alright, once the project is as long as you want it to be and you do your last 8 rows of your figure 8 stitch just to finish it, now we can take it off the loom. But I want to show you how the design turned out in it. That's the design. Okay. Let's move everything out of the way and do our cast off. We're going to use a crochet cast off for this project. And my yarn's all tangled. Okay, sorry about that. Now to do a crochet cast off, I'm not using a crochet hook. It's a lot easier to do it without it. Take your loom tool down through your first peg. Pull the yarn up. Here comes my cat. Now you've got this loop. Take your working yarn and pull through that loop one time. The reason I'm using this instead of a super stretchy cast off is just because homespun yarn is not a yarn you can, it's hard to do the super stretchy cast off with this yarn without it shredding it. Okay. So there's really only 2 steps to this. You just pull the loop through the next peg, and in that working yarn you pull through and that creates a new loop. Now try not to have your loop real big because homespun can be a temperamental yarn to work with, and you don't want it to shred or anything. So the smaller you can have the loop, the better for the finished project. So this is all you do. As you can see, it kind of pulls it back, so it looks like it's in between these two, but it's actually coming from this one. You just want to make sure you're not accidentally skipping any pegs. Alright, so you pull the loop up, and this is your chain cast off. Just do this until you get back to your very first peg, and then I'll show you what to do. Almost at the end. Now the hardest parts to navigate are in these areas right here around the curves, but you just do it slow and just take your time with it, and you can do it. But when we get back, I've got one more to do, and then that puts us back. You can see I did that last one too tight, and now this is wanting to stick. Oops. Okay. I'm back at the black one, which was the first one I did. I'm still going to pull the yarn up through. And of course I forgot my scissors. There's a pair. Take and cut the yarn, and instead of like creating a new loop, you just pull that yarn through, and at this point you can go over the entire loom and take everything off because it's going to be hooked in, and then we'll look at our final project. Let me see. Oh, this is actually pulling off pretty easy. And if you don't like how stretchy, if you want a bigger opening, you can actually do an extra, how you pulled the yarn through and did like one chain in between each peg. You can do a second one, but it will create these little holes at the top of the cast off that you might not want. There's already going to be some. Alright, taking it off the loom is a lot faster than doing the cast off. It's one of those cast offs kind of feel like it's taking forever to do. At least with the homespun yarn it does, just because the homespun yarn is a little more difficult to work with in projects like this. But I do like how warm homespun yarn is. I am a fan, even though it can be difficult to deal with at times. Alright, I'm going to push all that down through. Okay, here we go. Oops, and there I go, messing up my camera. But see, look, I think this opening is going to be plenty big enough. But there's the texture. Ooh, that's nice. I wish I would have started out with this yarn and switched back and forth. See, I started with this yarn, but I didn't have enough of it to do a whole project. Honestly, this turned out a lot better than I expected. See, making the little holes the way I did, I like how it turned out. Let's flip it inside out and see if there's any difference. Because remember, this is my first time doing this. It's just something I kind of made up as I went. I mean, the technique I used is out there. It's just something I've never really used before. I think the other side shows it. You know, it's about the same. So cool. So it's going to be basically a reversible pattern. I do think I like this side just a little better. This right here stands up, where on the other side it doesn't. And then now with your ends, if you did them the way I showed you to, for the most part, you can go through and just cut them. I do like to leave a little bit out because you are going to be stretching it. And if you're really worried about it, you can take and tie a knot. I'm not a big knot person, but if you tie them, you just make sure you have it woven underneath, and then you can just cut down right to that knot. Something like this, you're really not going to notice knots. It's got so much texture and stuff. Now I do want to take a crochet hook and weave these in. I don't have a crochet hook sitting right here. And the same thing with this one. I'll take a crochet hook and weave that one in as well. But yay! Here is the finished cowl. And let me find something. I don't know where my mannequin is. I know she's got to be around here somewhere. Aha, there she is. Alright. My mannequin that has been through hell and back. Alright, so here we are, finished project. On a mannequin, yes, she's been horribly beat up and I need to get a new one. I still have a couple ends to weave in, but you can see it has a huge opening that will just drape, and then you can fit it over your shoulders as well if you'd like, or you can just wear it around your neck. Of course, if you want it smaller, the pattern is completely adjustable, just like I said before. You just got to, you just have to make sure it's a multiple of 5 so that the pattern will turn out the same. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, actually there is my email in the comment section, in the description below is my email address. If you email me with your questions, I can reply a lot faster than leaving them on the video itself, because sometimes I don't see them. But do feel free to leave comments and questions on the video itself as well. Do not forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.